Hello everyone, I'm Michelle Baisa and I am primarily a macro and nature photographer, but I enjoy working with portraits and creative edits as well. So today I'm going to be showing you how I made this image here out of this original image here by using adjustment layers in Photoshop. More specifically though, I want to show you how to use selective color. So while I'm going to be kind of speedily walking you through my entire edit, I'm really going to focus on that part of it. The first thing that I want to do is I'm going to turn off all of these pre-edited layers so that we can get back to the beginning. And before I actually start working on the colors, I am going to make a couple of minor edits. I want to even out my daughter's complexion. I want to even out the background here. So for the sake of time, I'm just going to show you that these are the adjustments that I made on complexion, and then I did use some dodge and burn to bring out some contrast there. And then I went ahead and I evened out the background, and this is what I ended up with here. So now I can move on to the fun part, which is the colors. And even though I do enjoy experimenting with the sliders to see what catches my eye as far as colors go, I already knew that I really wanted my daughter to have a really pretty rich blue dress, and I wanted to complement that with some really pretty red orange hair, which is kind of my favorite color to go to when I do creative edits as far as hair color goes. So I just needed to figure out how I was going to get there. And I'm going to go ahead and show you how I use selective color process. The first thing that you want to do is you want to make sure that you're clicked on your background copy, which I am. Then you're going to grab your lasso tool, and then you're just going to loosely select whatever the object is that you're looking to change the color of. In this case, it will be her dress. Just so you know, this is just my process. I know that there are other artists who work with this in other ways, but this is just something that I find is a simple way to do this, and it works for me, so I thought I would share it. Go ahead and get all this outlined. And also, when you use this method this way, you're going to end up with a mask. So if there's anything that ends up needing to be corrected along the way, you'll be able to use that mask to make those corrections. And then another thing to note is that if you want to add anything to your selection, like in this case, I've got some more dress up here that I want to add, I'm just going to click and hold the Shift key, and I'm going to go ahead and add that to it. And then if there's anything that you want to remove, like let's say you really didn't want all of her arm outlined there, you could hit the Alt key and hold that and then just trace what you want to remove from your selection, and it will do that for you. And I'll just go ahead and even that out on this side, like so. All right, so here is my selection right now. The next thing that I want to do is I'm going to right click and I'm going to feather it. And this is something that you're going to probably want to experiment with. All the feathering is going to do is it's going to help to blend this layer a bit from the rest of the image instead of having a super crisp line where that selective color change was made. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to stick with 25 pixels here, click OK. And then I'm going to go right here to this icon down here, click it, and choose selective color. Now you can see that it gave me my mask here, and the white area is everything that was in my selection. The black area is everything else in the image. So whatever you see in white is what the application, the color change is going to be made to, it's going to be applied to, and then everything in black is going to remain the same, the original as it was. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to click on this layer thumbnail right here, and you're going to see that there's sliders at the top. What you need to do is you need to look at the colors here. Now, you want to choose something that's pretty similar to the tone of the color of the object that you're changing. It's just a good place to start. Sometimes that's hard to do. Like for example, this is kind of greenish blue. Maybe we could try green. Maybe we could try blue. You could always start with neutrals. Now, the only problem with neutrals is that it really does apply to a wide range of tones. So for example, let's say we think, okay, okay, this dress is green, so I want to get rid of the green. So I'm going to go ahead and add magenta. Now that does work. It works really, really well. I have a really good rich blue color already to start. But as you can see, if I zoom in here a little bit, you can see that there is some color bleed on her skin. And really, with the layer mask right here, it is not that big of a deal. We can make fixes. But if we can do it another way where it'll create less work for us in the long run, that would probably be the better option. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to zero out these neutrals, and we're going to just go ahead for green and see what happens. I'm going to start moving these sliders around, and as you can see, as I'm moving these sliders, we are getting zero response. So green is not going to be the channel that we're going to be working in. Next, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to try some cyan here. And my thought process is that if I can maybe add some blue to it, yes, that works. We're already getting a little bit where we want to go. And then if I want to get rid of some of the green, because it was like a greenish blue, I'll add magenta. And again, you can see we're getting a really beautiful blue. Now, the great thing is that if we look up close again, the skin had no cyan in it. So those sliders had absolutely no effect on her skin, which is great. We won't have to make any adjustments in the layer mask. As we're moving on. The only other thing that I wanted to do was I wanted to add a little bit of black to darken it up a little bit, and that gets me that really rich blue that I was going for, which is fantastic. And the only reason that I really brought you through that whole process was to show you that you can use multiple avenues to get to the place that you're trying to get. You just need to do a little bit of experimenting, and it can help you stumble on ways that can make your future projects easier. So this was the color that I ended up with it in this case, and if I turn that off, turn on my original, that was the original one that I ended up settling on, so you can see it's pretty similar to where I was originally. So I'm just going to go ahead and leave that, and we're going to go ahead and move on to hair. Now I want to go back and make sure I am clicked on background copy again, make sure I have my lasso tool, and I am going to again loosely outline what I am looking to change, which in this case will be her hair. I'm going to go through the exact same process. I'm going to right click, feather, 25 pixels, and go to my little icon down here, selective color, and you can see once again the white is our selection and the black is everything else in the image. So I'm going to click on my thumbnail here. And for hair color, I usually just start with neutrals. It's just an easy place to start that kind of encompasses a lot of different hair colors. And I know that I want it to be orangish red, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get rid of some of the cyan, and you can see it's already applying a nice red tone to it. And then I'm going to add a little magenta, and you can see that it's even deepening that tone a little bit further. So right now we have a pretty nice auburn shade, and I'm going to go ahead and build on that by going to my reds channel. And at this point, I'm going to get rid of all the cyan so I can add red basically. I'm going to add all of the yellow since red plus yellow equals orange. So you can see I'm getting a good tone there. And then I'm going to go ahead. I can still see a little bit of a green cast there in the highlight. So I'm just going to add a little bit of magenta. You can see it kind of adds a little bit to it. So we're going to go ahead with that. And there's that flaming red color that I was looking for. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it there. Now, if I zoom in, you can see that we did get the color bleed there. Using the neutral slider, applied that color to her skin as well. And this is where the color mask, or I'm sorry, the mask is going to come in handy. So we're going to click on the mask here. And remember I said that the black is all of the original image. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to choose my brush, my black background, and usually, oops, sorry about that. There we go. Usually I start with my opacity at about 25 to 30%, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. This is entirely too big, so I'm going to bring it down there. There we go. Okay, I'm just going to start brushing along her skin, and you can see that it is removing that color cast from her skin, which is what we want. And scroll in even further so you can kind of get a really good idea of what's going on there. I'm going to make this smaller, get that little piece there, make sure it's not on her ear. All right, that looks pretty good to me. So there we go. That's not too bad. All right, here's what we just added. And then if I turn that off, I can show you what I had originally done, so it's not too far off. We'll go ahead and leave that there. All right, so that's perfect. Now, hopefully you got a pretty good grasp of how I use selective color in my process. I'm going to kind of go through the rest of the edit a little bit faster. At this point you can see that the tulips really need some help there. It's not a really good color combination there, and it's kind of blah next to the big bold colors that we've just added to it. So I went ahead and I used the selective color process to make those tulips a little bit more purple, which I liked. And then I also wanted to change the greens here. I don't really like how lime they look next to that. So when I went in to do that, what I discovered was I was having a little masking issue where I had some bleeding that I didn't want. So when I went in to make those corrections, I discovered that the selective color that I had applied to the greenery really brought an extra bold, really pretty vibrant purple to the rest of the tulips. So I went ahead and I used my color mask there to paint on that selective color edit to that, and I really liked the way that that turned out, so I left it that way. Now at this point I'm beginning to realize that my daughter's skin tone really looks exceptionally sickly. It's kind of a yellowish green, and it does not look good. So I went ahead and sometimes what I do in this case to get rid of that color cast is I select all of the skin, and then I go ahead and desaturate it a little bit. So I did that in this case. I added a desaturation layer. You can see where I kind of took out a lot of that color cast there. And then what I wanted to do was, since the image is pretty cool, I wanted to add more of a cool tone to her skin versus kind of where we are now. So I did that. I did that by adding a curves layer, and all I did was in that curves layer I took out a little bit of the green by just pulling down the middle of the green channel green graph just a tiny bit, and then I added a little bit of blue to take out some of the yellow. So that is where I ended up there. So now I'm pretty much done. I don't like how dark it is though, so in general I like to add curves layers at the end to adjust the light and the contrast, and sometimes I add a little bit of matte like a matte finish to the shadows. So that's what I did in this case. I added an S curve. And this is what we got here. My S-curve looks like this. Raised the midtones a little bit, raised the shadows a little bit, and then dropped this down in the middle because this adds a little bit of contrast, as you can see. So I did that, and then I really liked where I was there, and then I just sat on it for a tiny bit longer and decided to add one more little S-curve just as a final touch. So there you have it. I have gone from this original image here to this bold edit using lots of selective color adjustment layers among with other editing techniques. I hope it's given you a good idea of where to begin if you'd like to explore selective color in your own project. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me, and thanks so much for watching.